You're not just eavesdropping, you are part of current conversations with Cathy. Leave a comment. Tell us more about you. We're also here to listen. Conversations with Cathy get livelier with you around. Come, share your thoughts in the comment box. Follow us on Facebook.com. Conversations with Cathy. Follow us on Facebook. Facebook.com. Conversations with Cathy. You're not just eavesdropping, you are part of current conversations with Cathy. Leave a comment. Tell us more about you. We're also here to listen. Conversations with Cathy get livelier with you around. Come, share your thoughts in the comment box. Follow us on Facebook.com. Conversations with Cathy. Follow us on Facebook. Facebook.com. Conversations with Cathy. Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Cathy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Cathy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and spending part of your Friday night with us. Like I promised, we have a really interesting and informative show tonight. It's all about the COVID-19 vaccine. And again, first of all, if I'd like to know where you are all watching from. I see my classmate B from Maryland, all the way in Maryland, right? So I know it's morning there. And Dr. Malu Magno, Tam, Ryan, hello. I know all the way from Tagum in Davao City. So it's wonderful to see you all here tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Um, I would like to invite you to send us your questions, your comments, your reactions throughout the program, but especially when we go into our conversations and stories about the COVID-19 vaccine. But first of all, bago tayo magkwentong bakuna, magkukwentong pansit malabon muna tayo. Okay? And that's our first feature for tonight in Positive Pivots. Okay, welcome back. And wow, I'm like so nice to see many familiar faces and new friends. Dr. Bong, a lot of doctors here tonight, so I'm kind of like getting a little tense. Dr. Bong Benaventura from San Juan, Mary Bell from Sydney, hello, so nice to see you. Lorraine and her father from Antipolo, thank you for joining us. Ellie, um, Sonia from the City of Golden Friendship. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. No, we're really all excited about this show. This is our fourth episode of Conversations with Cathy. Ang bilis ng panahon. Chola and I realized, wow, this is our fourth episode na. So thank you for joining us every Friday night. Okay, so like I promised, Positive Pivots. In Positive Pivots, we feature individuals or families or couples who started new businesses during this pandemic. And so, tonight our feature is about an old favorite ko po ito from childhood, because I used to eat this a lot with my mom, no? Itong pansit malabon ng Edgy. So I'd like to welcome Edna and Chito. Please join us.
Hi, good evening.
Magandang gabi po. So napakasarap ng inyong So, paano po ito nagsimula? Bakit niyo po nagsimula nitong Edgy's Pansit Malabon ngayon pang pandemic?
It all started nung Mother's Day. She had a craving for Pansit Malabon. Matagal na siyang hindi kumakain ng Pansit Malabon. So, we tried to buy from different areas. Ang hirap. All areas, all restaurants selling it were closed kasi ang daming orders.
Okay.
So, but luckily we were able to find a store that sells it. Pero he was not satisfied with the taste.
Hindi ko nagustuhan yung lasa. Kaya after a week, naisipan kong gumawa ng sarili kong pansit malabon na alam ko na marunong naman akong gumawa. Kaya lang kasi hindi ko pinagawa lately nitong mga nakarang years, masyadong intricate ang preparations. Kaya dahil sa gusto kong masarap, gumawa ngayon ako. Ngayon, na gustuhan ng mga bata, sabi, "Ma, ang sarap nito." Sabi niya gano'n. "Bakit hindi natin ibenta?" Sabi ko, "Naku," sabi ko gano'n. Sabi, "Oo, sabi ma." Sabi niya gano'n. Tapos nakaisip na kami na ibenta nga. Dahil sa second try namin, nasarapan din sila. So, ayun, nag-start na yung business. Nakaisip na kami ng paano i-prepare yung business namin.
Start kami small styrofoam, tapos pinapabenta namin dun sa mga malalapit dito na may merienda places. So nagbenta naman, so we decided to go on and proceed na maging business na namin to.
Okay.
Kasi maraming nasarapan, so hindi lang mga anak ko ang nasarapan, so pati mga kapitbahay around the villages, pumasa sa panlasa nila. So ayun, naisip namin na to go this business. Dahil puso ngayon kasi yung pandemic na nag-online business. Yun.
Yes po. That's right.
Dahil nga seniors na kami, so nasa kami, madali kaming makakapag-business na wala namang masyadong overhead. Tutulungan pa namin yung iba na merong nag-crave ng kagaya ko, nag-crave ako ng pansit malabon, maaaring matulungan ko sila.
Oo nga po. At meron po Facebook page. Pansit Malabon Facebook page, no? So hindi po pagtayo ng negosyo, di ba? And maraming salamat po at sinishare ninyo yung inyong Pansit Malabon sa mas malawak na audience, no? Thank you very much po, Edna and ito. So, sana lumago pa yung business ninyo. Their Pansit Malabon is really very good. I had hindi ko nasasabihin kung gaano kadami ang nakain ko, pero masarap po talaga yung Pansit Malabon nila. So, thank you, Edna and Chito for joining us.
Thank you.
We're glad to be part of your program.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before I go on,
So
I just
I
wanted
just
to
wanted to
say hello to
say hello to
dami. John
John.
from Melbourne. Judith, I see a lot of familiar names. Ellie, thank you. And so don't go away. We'll be back with our COVID-19 vaccine special.
We'll be back. Conversations with Cathy will be right back.
About the COVID-19 vaccine, I think it would be safe, and I think I would be confident to use it just as long as it's from a trusted pharmaceutical and it has undergone the necessary steps and protocols for certification. But for now, with the progress we are hearing, I think it's too early to tell that there is already a successful COVID-19 vaccine.
Hi, siguro if I have apprehensions about the Russian vaccine, is I think it appears like too rushed. Siguro kung magpapaturok man ako in the near future, siguro I'd wait it out and see if talagang totally safe ba siya for human consumption talaga, at saka talagang super wala siyang negative side effects and all.
Well, at the end of the day, it's all about the safety and survival of everyone, especially sa panahon na to. So, my thoughts would be, sana yung vaccine, kung lumabas na siya, of course, it should be safe, clinically tested, kumbaga, kompleto niya yung test trials niya. So, para maging sigurado tayo na effective yung vaccine na yun. Kasi otherwise, kung hindi naman siya effective, baka it might cause more harm than good. Yun lang.
Ako po ay naniniwala na makakatulong ang COVID-19 vaccine upang maprotektahan ang milyon-milyong mga tao at makabalik din po tayo sa ating normal na buhay. Sana po sa darating na panahon, magkaroon tayo ng epektibo, ng ligtas, na bakuna na magagamit natin.
Okay, welcome back. So, eto na tayo with our COVID-19 vaccine special episode, special edition. So vaccines are such a hot topic nowadays. There's so many questions, there's so much misinformation, there's so many things to discuss. So that's why I'm so grateful tonight that we have two very special guests who can enlighten us, on really what should we expect, what should we look for, how can we better understand the vaccine, and possibly, when can we expect this vaccine to arrive. So first on our list tonight is Dr. Kirsten Lopez, who is a scientist with an extensive background in molecular and cell biology. She graduated with a PhD in oncology from the University of Oxford. So she's actually joining us live from the UK. She is currently a postdoctoral researcher, also at the University of Oxford. And very important, and this is also why she's graciously joining us tonight, she was one of the participants for the Oxford COVID-19 vaccine trials. So welcome, Dr. Kirsten Lopez.
Hi, Cathy. Thanks for inviting me to your show.
Yes, and thank you very much for, waking up early and joining us, and joining us and sharing your story with our audience tonight. I'm really grateful, to have you here on the program. So we're going to do things a little different this evening, rather than having a long conversation with Dr. C. I'm going to turn things over to her first, and she has this wonderful presentation of her journey into the Oxford COVID-19 vaccine trials. Okay, so Chrissy, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, let me just share
Sure.
my screen.
Yes, I look forward to listening to your talk this evening, and I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone else is. Okay, sige, Chrissy, go ahead.
Uh, I hope it's okay that this will be mostly in English. Kulang yung vocabulary ko in Tagalog for this
Sure.
kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me just share some of the things I've learned and experienced as a participant in the University of Oxford's COVID-19 vaccine trial. So first off, I just want to emphasize that I'm not part of the team that developed the vaccine, and I'm not an immunologist, so any opinions that I share or mistakes that I make are mine alone. So I'd like to start with a brief overview of what vaccines are and explain a bit about how they work, both generally and specifically in terms of Oxford's efforts. Then I'll share a bit about my own experiences and summarize the results of the trial I was in. So here's a bit of a science lecture about what vaccines are. And first things first, I think it's important to correctly define the terms that we're dealing with. From my personal experience, a lot of people just use COVID to mean both the disease and the virus. And there seems to be some confusion about what a vaccine is. So I hope this slide helps to clarify things. As I wrote in the previous slide, a vaccine is meant to make us immune to a specific disease. How it does this is by essentially fooling the immune system into thinking that we have an infection without actually making us sick, without actually infecting us. Depending on the pathogen, the most effective vaccines can be made up of dead bacteria or viruses, or those pathogens can be manipulated in such a way that they're less infectious to humans. Generally, the safest option is to just take part of the pathogen and deliver it into our bodies in a package that the immune system can see and recognize. In an ideal situation, this fake infection will allow the immune system to respond to a real infection in the future more quickly and get rid of the pathogen without you even noticing. But because biology is complicated, things don't always work out perfectly. So, in some cases, like polio, you're completely protected, while in others, like the flu, you can still get sick, but it's a lot milder than it would have been without the vaccine. Oxford's vaccine uses the concept of taking part of the virus and turning it into a red flag for your immune system to notice. What makes their vaccine unique is that they package part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus into another virus that is harmless and doesn't make humans sick. This harmless virus can still get into your cells, and then your cells use this blueprint from SARS-CoV-2 to produce the red flag, or in this case, these yellow spikes. If everything works as planned, your immune system notices this and mounts the same kind of defense response that it would against a real infection. Your immune system then remembers this experience, and if you do actually get infected in the future, It will recognize the virus immediately and get rid of it quickly. You may have heard that Oxford is leading the race in terms of COVID-19 vaccine development. The main reason for that is that they have studied and tested their vaccine technology before in humans when they were working on a MERS vaccine. They're not taking any shortcuts by any means, but being able to learn from their previous experiences is definitely an advantage. There are so many factors to consider when you're designing a clinical trial. So even knowing roughly what a safe dose might be helped increase the chances that their trials would succeed. So, with that out of the way, I'll switch things up now with a bit about my personal experiences during the trial. A lot of people, especially my family, weren't exactly happy that I volunteered. It's natural to be worried about being a lab rat. And to be honest, I didn't jump at the chance to be part of the trial either. I found about I found out about it because I work in the same building as the Vaccine Institute, and they sent out emails to Oxford researchers first. I hesitated, but after talking to my friends here, I eventually decided that it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to be part of something bigger than myself. Of course, as a scientist, I was curious about what the process would be like. I'm usually the one doing the experiment, not the one being experimented on. But I spoke to a couple of people who really wanted to volunteer but had other responsibilities like their kids or had health problems, and I thought I should do my part as a free agent, so to speak. And obviously, having a safe, effective vaccine would benefit me as much as it would anyone else. So it wasn't a difficult decision in the end. For the trial I was in, they recruited more than 1,000 people and divided us into two big groups and one smaller group. Each of the big groups was given either the COVID vaccine or a control vaccine against an unrelated disease. The small group got 2 doses of the COVID vaccine. I was in one of the big groups, but unfortunately, they still can't tell me which vaccine I got because the study isn't over yet. They had a lot of criteria for who can be a participant. This is to make sure that there are as few confounding factors that can mess up the study results as possible. Funnily enough, I was almost disqualified for one of the reasons on the right, but thankfully it was a false alarm. What are the things I had to do as a participant? First, I had to attend a screening appointment so that they could explain everything in detail and I could give my consent. Then they took my vitals, asked about my medical history, and got some samples for various tests. Apparently, everything was fine, so they injected me at the end of April. I then had to go back several times so that they could give me a checkup and take some blood to check if I had an immune response to the virus. In addition to that, I had to fill up an electronic diary every day for a month to report any symptoms. They also reminded me constantly to let them know immediately if I develop any symptoms of COVID-19. So, was there anything to worry about? This was part of the very detailed explanation they gave us at the screening appointment. The short answer is they don't expect any serious risks, but it's still possible. They can be somewhat confident because of their previous experience with their MERS vaccine. So I didn't think there was anything to be concerned about. I don't like giving blood, but who does? I've had other vaccines before as an adult, so I know the injection site can be painful for days afterwards. The general reactions didn't seem like a big deal. And most importantly, to safeguard against potential severe allergic reactions, they made me wait at the clinic for an hour after my injection so that they could deal with any allergies quickly. So, from my perspective, there really wasn't anything to worry about. And as with any scientific study, there are many ethical guidelines that they have to observe. I don't really have much to say about this other than the fact that, as far as I know, they did uphold the necessary ethical standards, and a prestigious institution like the University of Oxford would never risk doing otherwise. So, what was it actually like in the end? After all was said and done, having to give blood so often was definitely the most challenging part. Sometimes things went smoothly, sometimes I got poked 4 times, and once they didn't even get as much blood as they wanted, even after poking me 4 times. I also felt bad for making things difficult for them with my uh, small veins. But all the staff were really nice and helpful. They gave me food and drinks, sometimes hoping that it would make my veins more accessible. I even met a Filipino nurse who's been working here for a while. They were always willing to answer my questions and put me at ease. In the end, the whole experience wasn't as exciting as some people might expect. I only had a few symptoms and they were gone within a few days. So it might make for a bit of a boring story, but I think that's better than the alternative. So I thought I'd finish up with a short summary of what they found out from the study I was in and what's next for this vaccine. In a nutshell, the results are promising. No one had severe side effects. The immune response they observed strongly suggests that people who got the COVID-19 vaccine have developed protective immunity, and they have good enough data to proceed to a much larger study. One important thing to note is that this study was done while the UK was in lockdown. I barely left my house the whole time. So you can imagine that it's unlikely for any of the participants to have been exposed to the virus. They're going to continue to monitor us as the UK moves out of lockdown, but it might take a long time before enough people get infected and they can compare whether the COVID vaccine group had fewer infections than the control group. And this is where the next study comes in. Not only will they recruit more volunteers, they're also expanding the study to other countries with higher infection rates, like Brazil and South Africa. This way, they can get more data on whether this vaccine can protect us from COVID-19. I highly recommend going to the official website of Oxford's COVID-19 vaccine to learn more about their efforts. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Well, first of all, I have to say, it's very brave of you, very courageous of you to like join a trial, di ba, when there's so many and there are so many unknowns. So I thank you for that. Actually, you were like that is a major thing that you've done, and from the way your presentation sounded, mukhang it's going along very well, right? So when are they doing the phase 3 trials now, or are
Yes,
they?
they've already started recruiting in all those countries I mentioned here, Brazil and South Africa.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and if I remember correctly, they need 10,000 people here in the UK, um, something like 4 or 5,000 in Brazil and South Africa. So it's going to take time to
Right.
get all those people, but they're staggering it. So they've already started injecting people
That's
while
right.
they're recruiting.
Yeah, and what is the timeline? When do they expect, assuming everything, goes well, when do they expect to have the vaccine ready?
Um, the
Roughly.
last update that I can remember from them, they were very optimistic and said that uh, it would be ready by September if all goes according to plan. So the UK government has already ordered uh, millions of doses, and AstraZeneca, the pharmaceutical company, is already manufacturing.
Wow.
So they know that the demand is really high.
Yeah.
So they have to uh, get ahead of the curve, so to
That's
speak.
right. That's right. So, and you're, well, lucky people who are in the UK, because they'll be like, first in line to receive the vaccine, right?
And also because they have a socialized healthcare system, it will be free.
It will be free.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Parang nakakainggit, no?
Yeah,
You're gonna get it early, and then it's free pa. So wow, that's really fantastic. So Ses Kasilag said, sounds very promising, accompanying these efforts with prayers. Yes, that's true. And Mila Paner says, thank you, Christy, for sharing your experience as a participant. Yes, really, so brave. So Dr. Malu Magno, this is good news. Yes, this is really good news. Okay, there's a question. This September, it's like they can't believe it, Chrissy. It's like this September na.
uh,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know if they're going to pull it off, but everyone is hoping, keeping their fingers crossed.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, wonderful if they can, right? That's really wonderful. But production and ramping up production, you know, that's like a whole different story, right?
Yeah, especially it's hard to work right now.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us and joining us all the way from the UK. And I'm happy that you've come out of the trial, not with nothing happening. Diba? So I'm sure it was a relief also to your whole family, right? That you've come out of it, well and healthy.
I had to explain very clearly that the risks were minimal.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And
So
thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about it.
thank you for sharing your story, and we will look out for we will pray and look out that everything goes well, so that at least kayo in the UK, diba? Kayo in the UK, you will have the vaccine already by before the end of the year, and God willing, we'll be able to have the vaccine to maybe, I don't know, next year. But well, our next guest will be able to tell us more about that, and I hope you can stick around for that,
Yeah, I'd
Chris.
be very interested to hear about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chrissy. Okay, so if you like what you're hearing, what you're watching, please like and share the video, so that we can spread, the information can go, onto a wider audience. We put up this program primarily to be able to share stories that inform and stories that inspire. And what you did, Chrissy, is like really inspiring. So thank you again for that. Okay, don't go away. We'll be right back.
We'll be back. Conversations with Cathy will be right back.
Hey, welcome back. So now we continue with our COVID-19 vaccine special. And I am so happy and so grateful, for our next guest, that he agreed to, come onto the program and share his knowledge and expertise. So Dr. Beaver Tamesis is currently the president of the Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association of the Philippines, or more popularly known as PHAP. He is also the president and managing Director of MSD or Merck Sharp and Dohme. So welcome, Dr. Beaver Tamesis.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks, Cathy, for inviting me.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Beaver. And just a disclosure, Dr. Beaver was my boss in my previous life when I was still in pharma. So I'm really so very happy that he is joining us tonight. And if you have any questions for Dr. Beaver or reactions to the things that we are going to talk about this evening, please feel free to leave us a comment or leave us a question, and we'll try to reply to it during the program. So, Dr. Beaver, again, thank you for being here. And I guess because Chrissy gave a pretty much thorough presentation, maybe we can start by if you could explain to us what are the types of COVID-19 vaccines that are being tested, because there's a lot, diba? I mean, there are like several companies now in a race to produce the vaccine.
Well, everybody wants to get the vaccine out there immediately, right? In a pandemic. So, while yes, it may be a bit of a race, at the end of the day, what's important is we get some viable vaccine out there to protect people. There are at least 6 candidates now in phase 3 trials, and already we know about the Oxford Institute vaccine. There's also the Moderna vaccine. There's also the one from Pfizer, a couple of Chinese vaccines, and then I think I'm not sure if it's Sanofi that also has a candidate out there already in phase 3. There are at least 4 different kinds of potential vaccines, the platforms, what they call it. Uh, One platform is what was already previously described by Dr. Chrissy. Basically, what they have is a virus platform. Most commonly used seems to be the adenovirus platform, which is the common cold virus, one of the common cold viruses. And by attaching a piece of either the protein or genetic material of the virus onto that can now infect, in quotation marks, enter the cells of the patient, the host, and hopefully he can now generate the antibodies in response to that particular viral protein. Now, that is a much more refined piece of work so that you can actually zero in on the exact protein that we are most interested and hoping that the body can respond to. And right now, it seems to be the spike protein. Everybody's talking about the spike protein, those things that stick out on top
Yeah.
of the virus, because that seems to be the part that attaches itself to ACE2 receptor in the respiratory tract of the patient.
Yes.
Now, there are the older styles, in quotation marks, which are whole virus vaccines. Dito yung mga inactivated or weakened vaccine. The inactivated flu vaccine, for one, that's something that we usually have in the annual flu. This one naman, you grow the virus in, say, eggs, chicken eggs, and then after a while you kill off the virus, and then you now package that into your syringes so that you can be injected to the patient. The newest kind of vaccine technology or platform now is the genetic vaccine, in particular messenger RNA. Remember, we have the DNA and then we have the RNA. The DNA is what we're all composed of. The RNA is the piece of similar to the DNA, but this time this is the one that copies the DNA and transfers that into another cell for manufacturing naman of the protein products that you need. So messenger RNA, yan ang ginagamit ngayon, so that they now inject a piece of that messenger RNA from the virus. So just that one portion that they hope will generate now the immune response by the patient. And the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine are all messenger RNA vaccines.
Oh.
It's supposed to be faster to produce. That's the reason why it's so attractive. It's faster to produce, easier to ramp up. That's why they really went big into it. The problem with it is that it's so new, there really isn't any product out there that is a messenger RNA vaccine.
Right.
So we don't know if it will actually work. It doesn't have a track record of success. I think that's the issue with the messenger RNA.
Right.
But big companies are all looking at it because of the ease of production for the future. And then finally, there's the last kind, which is the protein-based vaccine, which is actually now taking a piece of the protein again from the virus and then injecting that into the patient, hoping that the patient now generates a response specific to that. It's not just the whole vaccine anymore, na pinatay mo. You now
Right.
choose a specific protein and that's what you inject.
Okay.
Now, these different platforms have their benefits
Yes.
and
Yes.
they have the potential downsides.
Mm,
Depending now on the kind of virus that you inject or that you're working on, the safety profile, and whether or not there's a likelihood of developing an adverse event or a side effect beyond just the usual of pain or soreness at the injection site or a little temperature after the injection.
that's right. Wow. Okay. Yeah, there's so many different types pala. Now, in
Right.
terms of dosing, doc, do you have any news or updates? Is it like going to be one dose, two doses? Do you need a booster?
This is what I think every company is looking at very closely, right? The Moderna vaccine and the Russian vaccines are clearly two-dose vaccines.
Okay.
One is given, I think the Moderna vaccine is given a second dose after the 28 days from the first injection. The Russian dose is even more complicated. Not
Yeah.
only do you give two doses, day 1 and day 21, they're based on two different adenovirus strains.
Oh,
So dose 1 is adenovirus 26
yes.
and dose 2 is adenovirus 5.
Hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
The claim of the, at least in the news interviews that I caught, was that the claim is that by using a different vector
Mm-hmm.
for the second dose, you maintain still a very robust immune response to the vaccine. So they claim that they saw that by using just only the same adenovirus, you generate a weaker response in the booster phase.
Okay.
Now, that one Chinese company is using one adenovirus strain. I think Oxford is using the other adenovirus strain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're seeing with those two companies. Now, I believe the Oxford, I think Dr. Chrissy received one dose. I
Yes.
think the question now is whether it should be a one-dose vaccine or a two-dose vaccine.
Vaccine.
I think that's the question now that they're going to try to answer in their phase 3 trials. I know other companies are looking at single-dose vaccine.
Hmm.
Depending now again on what your vector is, whether or not that particular virus vector will generate or help generate a robust immune response that will be much longer lasting.
Right. Because now we're seeing, doc, diba, there have been cases of like reinfection. Reinfection. We've had that here. So like I'm thinking that kind of like impacts the development. I mean, how many doses you get, diba?
Well, it's complicated, right? It's very, very complicated, these cases of reinfection. But at the same time, understanding how potential side effects of a vaccine, a badly designed vaccine, can actually help explain that. One of the things that we're most concerned with, especially with coronavirus, because coronavirus is implicated in this, along with lentivirus, flavivirus, and other viruses, including the notorious dengue
Yeah,
virus, right?
virus.
Is the notion of antibody dependent enhancement, or ADE. Antibody dependent enhancement means that a brief exposure to the virus can generate an antibody response, but mahina.
Mm.
It's a weak response.
Okay.
Tuloy, the way antibodies work in certain diseases is that they will try to bind with the virus protein. But the question is, does it neutralize
Mm.
the virus protein? That's one. Or is it adequate? Do you have enough antibodies to neutralize it totally? Now, if it is unable to totally neutralize it,
Mm-hmm.
you might be generating an immune response with your macrophages, your other white blood cells. And when a second new infection comes in, aba, nandiyan na ang aking kakainin na white blood cells. So suddenly, new virus particles come in and rapidly multiply, enhancing the disease.
Mm.
So ito yung sinasabi, parang you stimulated it a little bit and then you actually opened up the patient to becoming more
Yeah,
receptive to the virus.
the virus. Yeah.
And we have actually seen that happen.
Mm.
We've actually seen that happen, and the most well documented condition that has that
Mhm.
is actually dengue, which is why it's really important that in a dengue vaccine, the first dose that was given should not have been the first exposure of the
Yes.
patient.
Yes.
If that was the first exposure, a natural infection can now come in and find the ready and available play field for it to come in
Mm.
and actually rapidly multiply and make the condition worse.
Yeah, that's
Now,
right. Right. Yeah.
so
Mm.
far, in all of the, at least the reports that have been coming in, this enhancement has not been seen with the trials in SARS-CoV-2 for this particular virus. It has not been seen so far, but obviously we need more and more patients. Like I heard mentioned that at least 10,000 patients will be enrolled
Yes,
in
the
phase
UK.
3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of study size that you need to be able to surface the
That's
different types
right.
of potential side effects.
That's
The
right.
Moderna, the
Mm.
Moderna vaccine is
Mm-hmm.
enrolling 30,000 patients.
Wow. Okay. That's their phase 3 na rin, right? Moderna is in phase 3 also, right? Yeah.
They're already in phase 3. They were hoping, I mean, like they claim that they can finish before October, but
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the rate of recruitment, and knowing that you have to give 2 doses, so each patient before you can actually, and then you have to wait 1 month, because the
Right.
likely endpoint, the primary endpoint of the study, the main one they'll be looking at, is 30 days after the second dose.
Mm.
What happens at 30 days after the second dose? Did the patient have an infection or not? Was he protected or not?
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that a minimum of 2 months of observation period.
Right. Right.
And then after those 2 months, tama yung sinasabi ni Dr. Chrissy, you have to monitor actually up to 2 years.
Oh.
You need to monitor for up to 2 years to make sure there are no additional side effects that just come out.
Hmm.
So in the acute phase of a study that you're going to conduct like this, a phase 3 study, fine, you can get an endpoint after about 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming you can recruit 30,000 patients in week 1,
Mm.
by 2 months, you have your results.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can do the analysis already, so you can publish by early January or first quarter.
Mm.
But that's really dependent on whether you can recruit your 30,000 patients in week 1.
That's
That
right.
doesn't happen.
Yes.
That
Yes.
doesn't happen in real life.
Yun na nga eh.
Uh-uh.
So yeah, so all this so which brings me to their talk of, imposible pala yung COVID-free Christmas. No?
Not Christmas 2020, maybe Christmas 2021.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Babalang taon eh.
Oo nga, hindi naman pala sinabi kung ano yung taon. That's right. Yeah. Most likely, oo. Now, let me ask you, Doc, production, di ba? How long, let's take the Oxford example. Let's say all goes well, and they have their vaccine by October, November, let's say November. What is the process? Let's hypothetically, let's say they are the success. Yung sa Oxford. So hypothetically, how long would that take before it gets to us?
Well, the smart thing that Astra is doing is they're already starting production, right? They've already started their own factories producing, and at the same time, they've contracted. I believe they've contracted Serum Institute of India to actually also produce doses. So you have multiple factories already ramping up to produce, and that's a big bet. That's a huge bet in terms of the money investment that you're going to put in, which is why it's really important that you get support from all of these international associations, or you get support already from your governments already and willing to put money down. Kasi, kumbaga, you have to somehow reduce your risks and
Yes.
try to mitigate some of your costs. Now, different vaccines have different lengths of production time. And to be honest, even very well-known or well standardized production methodologies can also yield you zero particles. It's happened to all of us in vaccine manufacturing where or you put in a batch or you expect you'll be able to supply millions and millions of doses and lumabas, nada, empty.
Oh,
So
pwede ba
you have
yun?
to really this is not as simple as making a pill or a tablet. Now you
Right.
just tablet, mix a few
Mhm.
things, compound, ta 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 ta, boom, out the door. No,
Right.
you have to basically grow these things or
Mhm.
nurture them that they actually bind, they actually
Mhm.
attach to the virus, and the virus multiplies
Right.
properly.
Right.
So it's very hard to give a comment as to what's the timeline for
Mhm.
manufacturing a batch. But
Mhm.
I think the companies are trying to reduce the risks by having multiple factories produce, and at the
Yes.
same time, they're spreading the risk around and hopefully doing things in parallel with the ongoing trials so that by the time the trials prove yes or no whether it's actually safe and effective, then you
Mhm.
already have a ready available vaccine batch to sell or distribute.
That's right. That's what Doc Risi mentioned nga, di ba, that the UK government has placed an order already of 1 billion
Correct.
doses from Astra. Para nandyan na, di ba? If it's like, okay, good and ready, then madali nang i-roll out, I guess. Yeah, because you have
Right.
the billion doses. Okay. Siguro just to for our audience to Cholo, maybe we can pull up the chart showing the phases because I see a question here from Maribel. What are the stages in the process of declaring a vaccine effective and safe for use by the general public? Is there a period of time for trial participants to be exposed to the actual virus? There, yeah, Doc, I think Chola's just pulling out are there. Maybe
Yeah.
we could do a quick ano lang.
This is a very good chart to actually explain how we go through the process of testing a vaccine, right? Developing and testing a vaccine. The
Mhm.
first part, of course, is preclinical. Before it gets to humans. Clinical means humans. So preclinical, mga hayop, mga laboratory dishes. And this is where we try to see whether or not in the animal models that are studied or genetically bred to mimic the potential response of humans, whether or not there's a side effect. And this is where we really look for the side effect of vaccine or antibody dependent enhancement. This is the part where they really look hard for it. But right now, I mean, like the Russian, there are
Pamalit.
many, not just the Russian, I think even the Moderna study vaccine,
Mhm.
even before all the animal studies came out, they went ahead and went to human studies, which is normally a total no-no, right? You normally don't want to touch humans until you're sure with the laboratory animals. Then
Right.
you go into phase one. Phase one is small. You're just less than 100 people. What you now want to do is just monitor for the acute reactions, short time reactions within a month
Mhm.
to monitor for side effects, and maybe at the same time you're already trying to look for the right dose. All right, so usually it's just really a single dose, and you're just trying to look at safety. Anong mga side effects nakikita? And the most common side effects, at least with the Moderna vaccine that was reported, was headache, fever. So there was one news report, testimonial of one patient, of one volunteer, na hospital pa siya sa lagnat. It's a tindi ng weakness that he felt after the vaccination. Turned out he received the highest dose. Then you have phase two. Phase one and phase two tend to blend in this particular scenario kasi nga everybody's in a rush to try to
Mhm.
get a vaccine out the door, right? Where you're now looking for the right dose. What's the
Mm.
size of the inoculum? And this one they do about a couple of hundred patients. They do
Mhm.
about a couple hundred, look at two or three different doses, try to find what's the appropriate response. Because you not just want to have the right antibodies, you want the right amount of
Yeah.
antibodies, as I explained earlier, right? If you
Mm.
don't have enough antibodies, the virus just continues to multiply,
Right.
which
Yeah.
might be the scenario in these reinfections.
Mm.
See, that's the reason that came up when I was thinking about it and reading about this,
Mhm.
reading and preparing for tonight's conversation. Is
Yeah.
that a case of antibody dependent enhancement?
Yeah.
Who knows, right? We don't know. And
Right.
then finally, of course, there's phase three. Phase three, ito yung mga libo-libo-libong pasyente.
Yeah.
Libo-libong volunteers. We're looking at Moderna's has 30,000. We heard earlier that's 10,000 for the Oxford Institute vaccine. I know other studies are doing at least 30,000 also. And dito, this is pretty much standard again. You have your first week monitoring, and then depending on the number of doses that you're giving, you actually want to monitor up to about 30 to 60 days after the last dose.
Mhm.
So that's the short phase. And then
Right.
you have to monitor for all the way up to 2 years just to make sure that walang ibang side effects na lumitaw.
Mm-mm.
So Dr. Chrissy, you're in the hook for another year or two. You'll be constantly contacted by the Oxford Institute for that particular study that you participated in. So, but most approvals are based on that initial 30 to 60-day reaction, the initial antibody response that they see, and whether or not there is protection. Kaya important yung sinabi ni Dr. Chrissy that we have to be putting the study in places where maraming transmission.
Yes.
Because if there's no transmission, you'll never know if the vaccine protected you or not.
Mm. Tama.
That's why they had to go to Brazil. That's why they have to go to a place like the Philippines. The Russian vaccine wants to be here in the country. They want to
Yes.
place their phase 3 trial here because ang dami-dami pa rin nating reproduction and
That's right.
transmission.
Yes. 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 Oh, okay. And then phase 4, nice. What is this? Yeah.
Phase 4 is after na. After you've already gotten your certificate of product registration, approval from the FDA, the European Medicines Association, etc., then you now do further studies. If you still need to do further studies, maybe in certain groups that are highly vulnerable or a special subset of individuals that you didn't include in your other trials, then you try the vaccine in those individuals naman.
That's right. Okay. So I need to ask you this question. What are your thoughts on the Russian vaccine, on the Gamalaya, the one being produced by Russia?
Let's get one thing across first. The Gemalaya Institute has a very storied and reputable history.
Okay.
They have great scientists there. Let's get that out of the way.
Okay.
But the behaviors today lead you to scratch your head, to be honest. And I think we just saw news about one of these Russian scientists who resigned abruptly because he felt that there were a lot of breaches of ethics.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I
So
read that.
that leads really a lot of question and concern about the conduct or the rush into this particular scenario. Before the week's announcement, all we could pick up was what the New York Times and the WHO had published, that the Gamaleya Institute had a vaccine candidate, that it was in phase 1 trial, and they actually had a number 76 patients. That's the only information that was available. And suddenly, they'll come out and say that, oh, now they're going to vaccinate every single Russian citizen.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah.
What happened here? What happened to from 100 to millions?
Yes. Yes.
That's a huge leap of faith, right?
Yes.
Without properly understanding whether or not there are potentials for these antibody-dependent enhancement.
Right.
Do we have even the right neutralizing antibody? Correct nga ba that it's the spike protein that actually works? The adenovirus vector is well studied. Yes, it's a well studied vector, not just by Russia. Every other company and world does that.
Yes.
So there's no question about the adenovirus, except for HIV. That's a different story. In HIV, that's a bad thing to use adenovirus, which is why we don't have an HIV vaccine to date.
That's right. Yeah.
So it leaves all these questions open. And I think what everybody's looking for is really just transparency. Where's your data? Show it to us. Mahimay. Maintindihan ng lahat whether it actually is working or not. Because you really don't want to be giving well people. Remember, vaccination happens in well, healthy people.
Yes.
And then suddenly you give them something that will make things worse. We have to be careful about that.
Yes.
So that's where the world is reacting to. And that's exactly my reaction too when I first heard it. It's like, huh? How did that happen?
Oo. That's right. And so, we shouldn't be so quick, right, to like
Right.
accept and come and all that because it also needs to be vetted by the FDA, correct? I mean, hindi naman
Yeah.
pwedeng, yeah,
So, which is what I think. I'm glad to hear, naman, that the Department of Health and the FDA actually said that no, we'll go through the process, etc., etc. But
right.
at the same time, I mean, like, I'm listening to interviews of Russians talking about this particular development, and they say, "Oh, the Philippines will do it." It's like, okay, na decide na pala.
If,
I certainly hope that our authorities
mm,
are given the dossier, and they can actually study and look for all of these potential side effects, whether or not nakita na, or whether or not it was even showing signs of promise. Was it generating the right volume of antibodies, etc.? What's the appropriate dose to be used in vaccinating or trying it in this phase 3 trial? So
yes.
I'm not opposed to having phase 3 trials here. I just want to be sure that the regulatory affairs people and our regulators
Mm,
actually have access to all the necessary information to make an informed decision, to make a decision whether or not we will grant permission for the study to happen here.
that's right. Yeah, agree with you. Yes, agree. Okay, let me just jump to like, let's jump to 2021. And there is a vaccine already. Okay, maybe not even just one, maybe two or three.
Yeah.
That have, yeah, di ba? Um, how do we get to vaccinate everybody, di ba? Because they say no one is safe until everybody is safe. So how do you
Right.
get? Yeah. So what's the
That's
scenario for that?
Yeah. I certainly hope also that the Department of Health is really giving it a lot of thought. But at the
Mm,
same time, the Philippines has already committed or signified intention to participate in this COVAX initiative, where the groups like Gavi and Coalition for Epidemiologic Preparedness Institute, and I think another group, I'm not sure if it's the WHO, are all together working. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they're all
mhm.
working together to make sure that each country already has a guaranteed allocation depending on their readiness and capability to pay. And I think the Philippines committed to something like 20 million doses from at least the press reports that we read, right?
Okay. That's
Now,
good.
20 million is a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. Now, how to distribute?
Yeah.
This is where I hope that our Department of Health is already thinking through their priorities.
Mm.
Syempre, the Department of Health focuses on the poorest of the poor, mga laylayan, and because they're the most vulnerable. But they also need to identify who else are vulnerable segments of society that we need to protect kaagad. And
Yes.
I think, mind you, I think the healthcare professionals, particularly those who have to deal with patients, potential COVID patients, they need to get the vaccine early
Definitely.
on.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Right, so that they can remain healthy and then roll out the vaccination program with the rest of the society.
Correct.
Now, the Department of Health does do NIP or National Immunization Programs, so they know how to roll out programs,
Mm.
be it school-based
Mm.
vaccination programs, get all the school kids of a certain age group and vaccinate them, or
Right.
be it through community-based. But
Mm-mm.
community-based is much more tricky, syempre, because you're now trying to get people to show up. Not like
Yes.
in school, they're there. The kids are there, right? Pag
Mm.
may klase, nandun sila, may pasok.
Yeah.
But we've seen the Department of Health, by working with them, we can actually generate local community excitement to
Mm.
actually receive the vaccine.
Agree. Agree.
And we've
Yeah.
seen that. We do that time and time again with the Department of Health, the regional offices, the provincial offices, the city government,
Yes.
and then working through the multiple stakeholders, the medical societies, the
Mm.
teachers, parent teachers associations, associations for retired persons. Get all of these important civil society participants, and you can mobilize the community to actually show up and willingly volunteer themselves to get their free shots.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Department of Health is giving these shots for free.
Oo nga eh. I mean, that would be wonderful, right? If, we could give all these COVID-19 vaccinations for free. Wow, that's like, because we have to
Right.
protect everybody, di ba?
Well, I'm pretty sure there will be a private market. I'm pretty sure there will be a private market. It's like the flu and pneumonia. You have the private market and you have the public sector.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the private market will they can take care of themselves, but important is
Right.
that they go to their doctors and actually present themselves for vaccination.
Yeah.
I hope I really hope that people have really been heightened to and are more sensitive to actually wanting to receive the vaccine.
Mm.
I know this year the flu vaccine and the pneumococcal vaccine just flew off the shelves
Yes.
because
Yes.
people were looking for it left, right, and center. I
Mhm.
just hope that must sustain it and that people continue to want to protect themselves and actually engage or present themselves for vaccination, particularly when we've proven that the vaccines available are number one, safe, number two, highly effective.
That's right. So that needs to be communicated to and communicated well, right? So that the
Right.
people will be more than happy to like go and get their shots. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I have a question. We're seeing now, and it's sad and it's alarming, a lot of that we didn't see like a few months ago. A lot of yung families now, family transmission, ilan-ilan sila in a family, they get they fall to COVID-19. Can you explain a little about that, Doc?
Yeah, this is the kind of information that we should actually hear more about, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not enough for the Department of Health to report 6,000 cases again today or 4,000 cases the other day. We
Yeah.
need to understand what's happening. What's the cluster? Are we developing new clusters? Where are people actually contracting the virus from?
Yes.
And there was there was one cluster that was particularly interesting to me, and it was that of medical doctors who would actually start reinfecting each other. Because
My
for one, wala namang healthcare professionals, hindi na nakakasakit. Then there was a sudden surge again. Yung
God.
pala, they would lounge together, take off their mask, and eat.
Oh.
So all of you guys na who are in COVID wards, suddenly you take down your mask, nasa isang kwarto kayo,
Yes.
hala, magkahawaan talaga kayo. Just off your PPE. Kasi
Right.
naka-PPE pa rin sila eh. They just
Yeah.
take off their mask and kain and kwento.
Yes.
Now, that is something similar. I suspect that's what's happening to families.
Mm.
Potentially, family ko naman to, so I trust you. You're ano. No, I'm sorry. Uh, I mean, like, if you don't exactly always live together and you
Mm.
don't know where exactly each other goes,
Yes.
I think we need to really exercise a lot of real precautions pa rin.
Yeah.
Just because he's your brother, but they live, yung pala, they live in another compound,
Mm.
pag dumalo yung kapatid mo, that doesn't mean safe pa rin siya. Kahit kadugo mo yan.
That's right. So
So I
it.
think these are some of the things we need to really look at. The behaviors of families as they get back together. They have
Mm.
reunions, they have dinners together.
Yeah.
They all live pala in different households. They all meet different other people. Some are going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's a major issue that we need to be very aware of, because if that's what's happening, yeah, we're actually bringing or inviting in the coronavirus into our homes.
That's right. Family, pamilya ngayon ang nakikita natin eh. Yeah. So is that why they're saying, oh, you need to wear masks even when you're in the house and when you're with family members? I guess that's the rationale behind that.
That's probably what's happening. But yeah, I would love to hear more details, right? It's not enough for the Department of Health to just drone out numbers, numbers, numbers. They need to show us the analysis or what's the story behind those numbers. Did they do the right contact tracing? I mean, like I'm amazed that it took Mayor Magalong to be able
Mm.
to finally say, look, you're only monitoring pala 10, looking for 10 contacts. Hello,
Mm.
that should be at least 30, 38 contacts.
Yes.
I'm so happy he's finally trying to drive that discipline
Mhm.
into the rest of the LGUs, because that's
Exactly.
how I think they did it in Baguio to be able to keep their
Right.
numbers so low, and how they managed to break the tide in the wave of cases in Cebu. I believe I think that's how what they were able to apply there also.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Galing nga eh. Galing. Okay, Doc. I have a final question for you before I let you go. So, hypothetically, okay, if you were with the IATF, okay, assuming you're a member of the IATF, okay, what would be the top three things that you would prioritize for the short term, let's say 30 days, 30, 60 days?
We've been watching this very carefully, right? With great interest. I think everybody. When Vince Dizon came in May, his goal was to get testing back up because really it was pathetic levels, 5,000, 8,000 cases. We weren't even reaching 10,000 test results. So he's done a remarkable job. At least now they're hitting above 30,000. So the testing seems to be okay. But we still need the turnaround time to be at most 48 hours. That's still a major problem. Why? If you're going to release results 5 days, 1 week, 2 weeks later, part 2 of contact tracing doesn't work.
Yes.
Nakalat na ng taong yan sa buong madla yung virus.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of doing contact tracing. Once you've identified the case, trace immediately everybody that person could have been in contact with. Now, you tell me who wants to be cooped up at home for more than 48 hours without knowing whether he's positive or negative. That's torture.
Yes, that's true.
So it's really important to get this turnaround time fixed, be it in the private hospitals or in the Red Cross or the RITM or whatever facility. Get the results out within 48 hours.
Okay.
And then do contact tracing that is serious about itself, right? It has to be a seriously conducted contact tracing. Each of us can easily talk to 30, 50 people in the course of our lives in just 48 hours kung saan ka na nakarating.
Right. That's right. So it's really, so turnaround time, so you would address turnaround time and contact tracing, right? Yeah. And
Because the treatment part, I mean, like the doctors are doing a fantastic job.
yes.
They know what they're doing now. What they're doing now is very different from what they were doing back in March. So treatment has evolved very dramatically, and I think we're really seeing the benefits of that. People now better know what stages, what particular drugs will be used per stage of disease, and they have the right drugs already available for the most part. So really, I think the most important part is the turnaround time and contact tracing.
Contact tracing. So those are the two, major things that they need to address. They should put you on the IATF actually. So
oh no. Headache.
You explained, sabi ni Lovina, galing niyo pong mag-explain, Dr. Beaver Tamesis. Talagang magaling po siyang mag-explain. Kaya po, we're very thankful that Dr. Beaver is with us tonight. Well said, Dr. Beaver, di ba? Talagang teacher mode si Dr. Beaver tonight. Yeah, and Beatrice, amen to that. The doctors are doing a fantastic job. We pray for our frontliners every day. Yes, we do. Doc, can I ask for a final word? You address the audience, say something about this, how can we help ourselves, help the country?
We're all in this together. I think that's the most important part. We all go through this quarantine period. We all have our pains and we all feel the difficulties and inconveniences imposed. But kapit pa. Hopefully these vaccine trials actually work and we don't see these the more deadly complications that we're so concerned about. Early indication mukhang wala naman. So keep our fingers crossed that the trials actually prove that these vaccines, and I'm sure there'll be multiple different kinds of vaccines, different brands. I'm sure that will be the case. And I'm pretty sure hopefully we'll all see that they're proven effective and safe. So, kapit pa. We're almost there. Malapit na.
Yes, konti na lang, di ba? Konti na lang, Doc. Yeah.
Konti na lang.
Konti na lang. Thank you so much, Dr. Weaver. I really enjoyed this conversation tonight. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your expertise with us. Maraming salamat.
Thank you too, Cathy. Good night.
Thank you. Yes, good night. I'll see you.
We'll be back. Conversations with Cathy will be right back.
Okay, so that was quite a conversation, no? I hope that you were like inspired and learned a lot from our speakers this evening, Doc Chrissy and Dr. Beaver. You know, they're the best of the best. We're so grateful to have them here on the program tonight. And so, Cholo, would you like to join me for a bit before we give the final word this evening?
Yes,
Ano,
Miss Cat.
ano,
uh,
no?
yeah, meron pa mga realizations like, di ba, they say when, kasi karamihan sa atin po ngayon, natatakot tayo, we have our fears, we have our apprehensions. And
Yes,
sabi po nila, di ba, parang one of the best ways to get rid of fear is to understand what you're afraid of. And I think that's one great thing na na-address po ni Doc Lissy and ni Dr. Beaver.
that's right. You know, we're armed now with more, di ba, more knowledge about the trials and what
Yes,
to
Miss Cat.
expect and when to expect it. So, ang dami talagang a lot of things were given clarity this evening. So, I think that,
Okay lang po kayo na COVID, wala pong COVID-free Christmas this year.
di ba, I'm fine with di ba, as long as let's all keep safe. Konting, sabi nga ni Dr. Beaver, kapit lang, konti pa, di ba, konti na lang. The vaccines
Yes,
are
Miss Cat.
already on, phase 3 trial. So, di ba, magdasal tayo ng sabay-sabay para malapit ng lumabas yung bakuna na yan. That would be the best Christmas gift, di ba? Kahit hindi pa
Yes,
dumating
Miss Cat.
sa Pilipinas. But I think the best Christmas gift that the world, right, can ask for is a successful vaccine, di ba? Not just one, but
Yes,
maybe
Miss Cat.
several. Oh, dapat yun na lang ang hingin natin sa Pasko.
And I think important rin, Miss Cathy, yung sinabi ni Doc Beaver na we need to promote togetherness. So, I know na usong-uso ngayon, di ba, kumakanta ng We Heal As One. Pero if you look at it in a literal sense, that's exactly what we have to do. We have to heal as one.
That's right.
The majority should get yung vaccine, and I agree with Doc na the frontliners should get the first
Yeah,
crack at the vaccine
definitely.
na safe. Yes.
Na safe, di ba? Yung tamang bakuna. Kaya tama naman siya. At least pinag-aaralan ng DOH and ng FDA, and
Yes, Miss
I
Cat.
hope that these entities will not fail us, di ba? So we also have to pray for them. A lot of things to pray for, di ba, Cholo?
Exactly, Miss Cathy.
Thank you very much again for this, for this show. Okay, and
No,
so we
thank you,
close
Miss Cathy.
with our
Yes.
final words.
Final words. And I think our final words, Miss Cathy, are very apt with both the weather and
That's right, with the weather and what to expect. Okay, so cute naman ang gawa mo, Bing. Maraming salamat. Okay, not all storms come to disrupt your life. No, some come to clear your path. So if we think of COVID-19 as a storm, di ba, a really huge storm that has affected all of us globally, right? It really, yes, it disrupted us, but I am sure that it has also cleared or is now making clear to us the things that matter. So
Yes,
on
Miss
that
Cathy.
note, we will see you again next Friday evening. Thank you for joining us on Conversations with Cathy.
Good evening and welcome to Conversations with Cathy.